Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This video is sponsored by CasperChess.com, where you can find our new complete E5 defense course. You will learn how to play against the Italian game, the Bishop's opening, the Ruy Lopez 3 Knights opening, the 4 Knights game, the Vienna Gambit, the Goring Gambit, the Scotch Game, the Scotch Gambit, almost everything that gives you a hard time when you're playing black pieces. So I want to show you one beautiful trick that most masters make use of, be it in classical chess or in blitz. So you begin with e4 and then say your opponent plays the Caro-Kann defense. By the way, I'm also going to show you how you can employ the same trick that I'm about to show you even in other different openings like the Sicilian Defense and the Modern Defense. So keep watching and do not skip this video. My top recommendation for now is to go d4. Yes, after all, black is always going to play d5, right? So after this, you simply go knight c3 and then they'll most likely take on e4, after which you can simply take. Then yes, the top played move is knight f6. That's in the Lichess database, but in the Masters database, bishop f5 is the top played move, followed by knight d7, the couple of variation, which I'm gonna start with. Say black plays knight d7, the couple variation, which you're going to see a lot of times in classical tournaments. So the move that I highly recommend in this position, you guys, is this weird looking move knight g5. And you know what? In fact, knight g5 is the top played move in the Masters database. Why do grandmasters love playing this in over-the-board games? Watch. First of all, the simple trap is that if black plays pawn to h6, now you can simply surprise them by going knight e6. That's what theory says. So it looks like you're just kidding with your opponent, but the thing is, if they take your knight, guess what? This will be met in two after queen h5 check and say pawn to g6, then queen takes g6 checkmate. Anyways, I might have presented this line in one of my old videos, but today I want to go further, showing you how you can employ this same idea even in other openings. Anyways, by the way, after h6 and knight e6, if they don't take your knight, that's well and good. I mean, you're attacking the queen, right? So they have to do something about the queen. Say queen a5 check. Here you can just play bishop d2. Why bishop d2? Because this is a forcing move, unlike pawn to c3. It asks black to do something about his queen. So they'll play queen b6. And you know what? Most of you guys are thinking, now your knight is under attack, so you have to take the bishop on f8. But that's not the thing. Here you can simply go bishop d3, again ignoring this knight. And this time if they take, once again you have queen h5 check. They can't do anything about this. See, if they go king d8, the killer move that you can shock your opponents with is bishop a5. And their queen is gone, just like this. Anyways, now what if black doesn't take even if you play bishop d3? Yeah, like the top played move which they like playing in over the board games is knight gf6, cause that stops queen h5 in the near future. And now this is the part I didn't cover in that old video which I was talking about. Again, you don't do anything about this knight. Can you believe this, you guys? So the move to play here is just knight f3, and now this is when you are going to see most of your opponents taking your knight on e6, cause it just doesn't make sense. But once again, you can simply go bishop g6 check, and after the king moves, guess what to do in this position? Simply castle short. And I should mention to say, white has never lost any single game in this position according to the Masters database, despite being down a piece, because it's gonna take a bit of time for black to develop his bad pieces while all your pieces are involved in the game. So what you're telling your opponent here is, it's not about how many pieces you have, it's all about how many active pieces you have. So that's why Stockfish already gives a winning advantage to white. Before I move on to the next opening and show you what else you can do with this trick, say black plays something else after knight d7 and knight g5 instead of pawn to h6. What if they just develop their king's knight? Well, what I advise people to do here is to simply go bishop c4, targeting the f7 pawn, which is undefended. If e6, you now go queen e2. This is a famous position that you guys need to know by now. I did a whole video on this same structure. The thing is, after something like bishop e7, here you can just sacrifice your knight on f7, and after king takes, this will be mate in 3 after queen takes e6 check, and say king g6, you can just go bishop d3, and after something like queen h5 only move, you now met black like this. So back to the Caro-Kann defense initial position. In short, what I'm saying is against the Caro-Kann defense, just go with the knight c3 line, which is also known as the classical variation. If pawn takes and knight takes, and then black plays knight gf6 immediately, you see, I wouldn't advise you to go into the Tartakov variation by taking on f6, because most Caro-Kann players seem to be familiar with their lines. So once again, I just advise that you go knight g5. This time if h6, of course you don't want to take in a classical tournament, right? Or in a serious match, you don't want to take, because this time you don't have queen h5, so you might just retreat your knight and then continue playing normal chess. Your next move is to play knight e5 and knight to f3. If bishop f5 is played, what I like doing is just to go bishop d3, a cheeky move by the way, as if I'm offering this pawn for free, but it's not. And from here you're just going to have a normal game, believe it or not. You're going to develop your queen on c2, and after castle shot by black, you will play h3. If bishop h5, you can even go pawn to g4 here. Now you have a clear attacking plan like this, where you even end up separating black's pieces. Your long-term plan will be to castle long. By the way, there's a trending gambit that you can also try out in this same line, where black starts with knight gf6 first. After knight g5 and pawn to h6, you don't always have to retreat, especially in blitz. Here you can try to play what most people call the Alien Gambit, like this. The thing is, your knight double attacks the queen and the rook if king takes f7 happens. So you begin with knight f3 first, and after knight f3, your plan is very simple, just to go knight e5, and maybe in the near future go bishop c4 or bishop d3, queen f3, etc, depending on what black does. For example, you will see most of your opponents here playing bishop g4, trying to pin your knight to the queen, but here you can go knight e5 check, and on the next move you're going to win this bishop, maybe after bishop c4 first, because that's check. Say after pawn to e6, this is when you can take that bishop and you have a great position. So this is just one of those traps that you can try. Now, after taking on e4 with your knight, if black doesn't play the Karpov variation or the knight gf6 line and instead choose to play bishop f5, well, the best you can do is just to retreat your knight. It's not just about traps. After they play bishop g6, what we always do against this bishop is to try and attack it like this. If h6 is played, you just go knight f3, again trying to put your knight on e5. So this is the biggest strategy that I'm showing you guys. Again, you're going to see most of your opponents playing knight d7, meeting this knight e5 in advance. Well, you can do all sorts of things, including pawn to h5. If bishop h7, now you go bishop d3, and after bishop takes, you take back with your queen, e6, bishop f4, and I mean, this is just anyone's game, and from here you're going to have a wonderful game. Now, let me show you the most fun thing that you probably never knew. Did you know that you can also try to employ that same trick even in the Sicilian defense, beginning with pawn to e4 and then black plays c5. So this works perfectly in the d6 line of the Sicilian defense. After knight f3 and black plays the top played move d6, which is the modern variation. So I want you guys to see this wonderful line. You first of all start with knight g5. It's not a mistake. It's not a blunder or something like that. And the moment black plays pawn to h6 in an effort to chase your knight away, this is where you simply go bishop b5 check. And most of the times you are going to see your opponents playing bishop d7, trying to challenge your light squad bishop. And you know what? This is when you can shock them with a move knight e6. Once again, just like what you do in a Karpov variation. Can you believe that? When did you last see these kinds of traps, you guys? Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And if you're playing this in blitz or bullet, most of your opponents won't even see the real threat here. They'll just go on and take the light squad bishop, forgetting that their queen is under attack. Anyways, say black doesn't do that. If they take your knight, once again, this will be a mate in two, just like this. Wow. So this is great, you guys. And let's just say black doesn't fall for this. If black plays queen b6, the simplest you can do is to exchange pieces like this. You also take on f8 with your knight, and obviously black would take with his knight so that they don't lose their right to castle. This is when you can play knight c3, intending to go knight d5 given a chance. They'll play something like pawn to e6, stopping that, and now you can just castle short. Your plan is very simple. In the near future, you just set up your Grand Prix pawn formation like this, and maybe even attacking the queen first, or go pawn to b3 if you can carry your dark squared bishop and continue harassing your opponent. Right in the Sicilian defense, the same thing can happen even against the knight d7 line. Say after knight f3, d6, knight g5, h6, and check. So sometimes you might see your opponents blocking the check with the knight like this. Again, you can just go knight e6, because you know if black takes, you're gonna mate them in two, just like I showed you. If they play queen b6, this time you can just go ahead and take the bishop first, because the knight can't take back, it's still pinned. So if they take your bishop, now you can safely take on d7 like this, and probably they will take with their last squad bishop, and now you can safely play pawn to d3 and castle short, then set up your Grand Prix pawn structure. Guys, this is simple but so effective. Anyways, and we see the same thing happening even in the modern defense. For example, after e4 and g6, knight f3, bishop g7, d4, and pawn to d6. You know, the thing about modern players is that they don't like developing their king's knight on f6. They always want to leave their dark squad bishop free. So after knight c3, they play something like knight d7, the two knights variation, because next they want to play pawn to e6 or pawn to e5 and then play knight e7, not knight f6. By the way, knight d7 is a cool move. The idea is just to support the upcoming pawn to e5 pawn push. So right here you can just go bishop c4. And anyways, say black plays the top played move pawn to e6, covering the f7 square somehow. This is when you can go knight g5, again that alien move that I showed you, which we saw in the Caro-Kann defense and in the Sicilian defense. What's the deal? Well, the thing is, if black continues with his normal development like knight e7, this is when you can simply sacrifice your bishop on e6, intending to take on f7 as well. And if pawn takes, you're just going to win a free queen or a bishop. So you can see how effective this one simple trick is. Yeah, even if black doesn't take the bishop and say they just castle short, luckily you can still take on f7, taking another pawn, so that if rook takes, you don't take the rook. You just go knight e6, attacking the queen, and the only move for the queen is queen e8. And now you take the third pawn on c7 for free. The queen has to move after queen f8, or maybe queen. This is when you take the free rook, and probably you're going to win another pawn, the fourth pawn, with tempo. So that's how you make use of that knight g5 trick in the Caro-Kann defense, the Sicilian, and also in the modern defense. I believe this can work against many openings, but now time for you to go and check out my new E5 defense course, which I have also linked in the comment section down below. And I'm glad to say so far it has received a lot of attention and people are getting it like crazy. So it's an opening response that you try against white's E4 opening. You're going to learn how to play against the Scotch, the Ruy Lopez, the Bishop's opening, 3 Knights opening, the 4 Knights game, the Vienna game, even the Italian game. So it's the complete E5 defense course that I just launched with my team. You better go and check it out. Thank you so much for watching this video. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye bye.